people in court today that have a lot of detractors and a lot of supporters. The first one, the most recent of a very similar crime, the guy we now know is Tyler Robinson. He showed up in a weird way via video link for his very first court appearance. This is the guy that police say set his sight on Charlie Kirk and unleashed that one deadly bullet, effectively an assassination in front of 3,000 people. This is how he showed up. And I know you're probably looking at that thinking, is that a bulletproof vest? It is not. It is a suicide prevention vest. This is the way most people, Brian Kohberger included, are usually trotted in when it's as high profile as this kind of killing is. This is to make sure he doesn't hang himself, because you can't tie that thing into any kind of knot. So he very silently basically just said, yeah, that's who I am, that's my name. But he doesn't have a lawyer yet, which I thought was so crazy. They're working on it. Trust me, he's going to have a lawyer. He could have what we assume to be a public defender, but some high-profile lawyer may come out of the woodwork yet and say, I want this case. It's a stinker. I think he's going to have a really tough uphill battle, this one. Right? But I also see a few things that can mitigate him out of the death penalty. I'm going to talk about all of that in this case. I also want to talk to you about the text messages. So some of them were read today, but I'm going to read the rest of them. It's fascinating getting into this guy's head if the text messages belong to him. But if effectively the police say they're the messages between him and his roommate, who we now know to be his trans lover. Important because the Charlie Kirk question, in the middle of which he was murdered, was about trans shooters. Okay, so it's really important that don't call me political. Anyway, the text messages are off the chain. I'm going to read them all for you, unedited. And when we come to like bullets with messages on them, police say that Tyler wrote messages on his bullets, you know, hey, catch, fascist, right? Well, somebody else who allegedly wrote messages on his bullets was Luigi Mangione. They're very similar, these cases, except Luigi's super handsome and has legions of girls who love him, many of them showing up outside court today. Some of them, you know, yelling all sorts of anti-capitalist messages and free Luigi, etc. But lots of others have all these heart emojis in their fundraising appeals for him. But this was the scene outside of the New York court. Healthcare is, you know, human right, and a lot of people who say free Luigi, you know, I don't know if they believe he didn't do the killing, or if they think he did the killing, but he should have, because it's what we believe was right. I'm getting a little tired of saying it, although it is becoming my mantra. There are two things that I know to be true in this world, and that is that puppies are cute and murder is bad. Do not put a but at the end of murder is bad. There is no but. Murder is bad, but this guy, right? I don't care what your message is. This is America. And we don't live by summary executions by somebody who decides to be judge, jury, and executioner for everybody else, right? That's not what we do. So if you're a free Luigi guy, are you going to be a free Tyler guy? Because none of that should be happening. No, not if it's a principle. Evidence, that's a whole other ball of wax. And that I have for you tonight, lots of it. In fact, we learned a lot about the man who's being charged with the murder of Charlie Kirk today, a lot. And we learned a lot about the premeditated execution that police say he committed before leading them on a 33-hour manhunt. Like this little piece of information, the assassin was in a pretty tough spot. On the one hand, he had to ditch the rifle that he used in order to get away undetected, but on the other hand, he needed to retrieve that rifle so that there would be nothing to lead investigators to him. He got the first part right. He ditched the rifle, and he got away. Apart from a few surveillance pictures and crowdsourced videos, he was pretty much undetected. He had even ditched his shooting clothes. But going back for the gun, that was a huge risk. There was a police car that was parked right nearby. And in the end, he decided he had to leave it, hoping that it would go unnoticed in the brush. And everything I just said is public knowledge tonight, because investigators gave us the evidence. They said they did find the rifle, and those photos and videos were seen by the only two people in the world the suspect couldn't gaslight: his own parents. Tyler James Robinson appeared virtually today from the Utah County Jail. This is what it looked like in the courtroom. You already saw what it looked like from his vantage point. He was sitting in a room in the jail with the suicide vest. This was his very first court appearance, if you call that an appearance. We do nowadays, right? The virtual ones like this, these are virtual appearances, but they're his first appearance. And this is the first appearance since his mom and dad and his family friend persuaded him to give himself up last Thursday, a day and a half after Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck and bled out in front of 3,000 people, including kids. That matters. You're going to find out in just a minute why. Like, really matters that there were kids there. Robinson appeared before the judge today by this video uplink, and he was wearing, yes, that green suicide prevention smock. And he said nothing, really, as the judge read off all the charges filed earlier by the Utah prosecutors. If you haven't seen the list yet, it's important. It's not one that you ever want to hear attributed to you. Aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, 2 counts each of obstructing justice and witness tampering, and violent offense committed in the presence of a child. With the charges came a breathtaking 10-page account of the evidence gathered in just the past 5 days. Almost all of it provided by Tyler Robinson himself. Much of it in the form of detailed text messages to his roommate, who's also his romantic partner. And I'm going to start reading now. And if you are scrolling on your phone right now, or you're busy making dinner or doing anything else, I'm going to say you might want to stop and read along with me, because if prosecutors are right, it is rare that we have a first-person narrative from someone who has just allegedly played assassin on the night of the killing itself. Okay, ready? I want to pour that drink I always suggest too. Here's Robinson. He starts off this way. This is to the roommate. I am still okay, my love, but I'm stuck in Orem for a while. A little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you. You aren't the one who did it, right? Says the roommate. Robinson says, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate says, I thought they caught the person. Robinson says, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude and then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate asks one question, why? Tyler says, why did I do it? Roommate says, yeah. Robinson says, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate goes back to the important question here, which is, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week. I believe I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson goes on to say, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. He says IDEK, which is I don't even know. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? The only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see, quote, notices bulge, UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke. All right, I'm going to have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine. I don't know. I think that was a $2,000 scope. And then Robinson says, delete this exchange. Robinson goes on to say, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it's very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Robinson carries on. Since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson again. I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Robinson, you're all I worry about, love. Now the roommate answers for the first time in a while and says, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson says, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent. That last little bit's important because that's going to end up, as you'll see, as a charge. Don't say anything. Don't talk to the police. That long exchange began, the state alleges, when the roommate found a note that Tyler Robinson said could be found under his computer keyboard. And the note reads, I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it, end quote. As for that rifle, the prosecutors say they recovered DNA that is consistent with Tyler Robinson's. As for the court hearing, the only thing actually decided was to hold the next court hearing, September 29th. Tyler Robinson did not even have a lawyer. Nobody representing him here. Somebody said they're working to get him one. Stood up in front of the judge, said, I think you know why I'm here, but, you know, I'm not here on the record as his lawyer, but we're looking for one for him. Looking for a public defender. And yeah, he qualifies as indigent. That's what the judge said. So it appears the public defender will start things off. I don't know if it'll stay that way. I don't know if some other big, high-priced lawyer will come in and say, I think I want to do this one, because it's probably going to have to be pro bono. I'm joined now by a friend of the show and one of the sharpest legal minds in the business. Judge Tarlika Nuñez-Navarro is a former judge, former prosecutor, and currently the dean of the St. Thomas University College of Law. Judge, it's good to have you here on a day like this. How damning are those texts, the ones that I just read out? Because that's all I have right now.
Well, good evening, Ashleigh. This is a tragic, tragic case. My condolences to Erica and the children, and also to the family of the defendant. This is horrible for everyone. How damning are these text messages? Honestly, as a former defense attorney, I cringe hearing them. I just see element after element after element. Witness, obstruction of justice. We have witness tampering. We have lack of remorse. Covering up the picking up the rifle, just going on and on about his grandpa's rifle. That's what he's worried about. I mean, it's damning after damning after damning. It shows a direct admission of guilt, and certainly will be used in the death penalty sentencing as aggravators for lack of remorse.
So then let's talk about the other side, because I see just a big old mountain of evidence against this guy. The premeditation, the callousness, the carelessness. I mean, careless doesn't count when they're looking at aggravators and mitigators, but look at him here in the suicide vest. There was reporting as well that his parents had to talk him out of taking his life before going in to report himself to the sheriff. How much of that will his defense side be able to work into his case, saying, look, he's 22 years old. He got radicalized by his feet. He came from a good family. They were Trump-loving, Trump-supporting. He was not this leftist that everybody makes him out to be. He somehow was taken that way by the feet. Will they be able to do something like that to establish some kind of diminished capacity to mitigate down from death?
That's going to be an uphill battle for them. When we look at a death penalty case, we look at aggravators and mitigators. So we're talking about the mitigation here. And, you know, you have a 22-year-old, yes, that's mitigation, but you have a 22-year-old who knows what he did. He knows that it was a crime. He's intentionally trying to cover it up. He had premeditation. This was not an accident. So, you know, an insanity defense is not going to work, because an insanity defense requires you to not understand right or wrong. So that's going to be an uphill battle on the mitigation side.
Yeah. For sure, insanity is off the table. There is no shot there. And there's the picture in the middle of us to prove that he was running for cover, which is the mere definition of knowing something's wrong, when you're running away to try to secret yourself and secret the gun away. Yeah, you know right from wrong. Insanity is off the table. But what about those other gradations? State to state, they call it different things, but it's effectively the guy was somewhat mentally ill, and it should factor in to death penalty or no death death penalty. Again, it's all in the mitigation, because I think this guy is never going to skate from a guilty verdict here. I really don't, not with the evidence we've learned so far, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. What about that diminishing aspect? And again, it's different in every state. I don't know what it is in Utah, but diminished capacity is often what we hear.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to hear about it. That's all the defense really has. As a prior defense attorney, you know, we can't pick our facts. So they have really nothing else to utilize in the mitigation. This is a damning case. There's a ton of evidence, and the mitigation is going to be slim, and they have to use the fact that, you know, he is very careless, but at the same time, he was incredibly premeditated. The intent was there, the motive was there, and it's going to be an uphill battle on diminished capacity, I have to tell you.
Let me ask you something, Judge. Are they going to more than likely have his own family members testify against him? Because that would be one of the most, as a mom, that would be the most painful thing to see, bringing family members in to point the finger.
Like I said, this is a sad case for both families, all families involved. I imagine that the family will be subpoenaed to testify, and they will have to come in. They may be hostile, but it doesn't appear so. The parents convinced him to turn himself in, and they did the right thing here. And I think they will be called as witnesses and have to testify against their son, yes.
It's easy for us to say they did the right thing, but as a mother, you sort of put yourself in those shoes and think, could I turn my son over to the state for an execution? It's hard, and I don't know where our viewers are. We're all over the map in our politics in this little crime community that we have on this program, and it doesn't matter what your politics are. I feel for Brian Koberger's family. They weren't the killers. I feel for this guy's family. I feel for Luigi Mangioni's family. The families of, you know, of people who either did or are alleged to have done terrible things, didn't do those things, and yet they find themselves in the worst predicament and the most painful, you know, situation. So in that respect, that's why I said it would be painful to see a mother or a father having to come into court and point at their son, no matter what, you know, he's accused of. Last quick question. A lot of people are saying the roommate has exposure, and the fact is that this guy texted to his roommate, remember when I was engraving the bullets. Can you set the record straight on what your duty to respond is as a basic civilian, not a public figure, not a teacher, not a government employee, just a roommate? Do you have any duty to call police if you see someone engraving bullets?
Absolutely. You have a duty. Hear something, say something, see something, say something. As soon as those text messages came through, he had a duty to call the police department. That was made very clear by the governor of that state and the police and the investigators. And, you know, I think he did the right thing from what I can tell. I think he did notify the police. He handed over his text messages. He did not conceal them. And so I do not believe he will be charged. I believe he fully cooperated.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, morally, yes, of course, we all have a duty. Legally, I don't think you can be charged unless you're, again, a public official. You have a duty to respond to something like that looks like imminent danger, you know, is ahead of you. But for that roommate, the texts look to me like the roommate was pretty damn shocked. Is this really you? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I mean, I think that's pretty strong evidence. Judge, it's really good to have you. I'm so sad about where we are as a nation and how some people celebrated this death and how others celebrated the death of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare worker. Like, I'm so tired of vigilante justice and those who support it, because there's no end to it. Once you jump in that bin, anybody's game, you know? If your message isn't palatable, well, then the next guy apparently is okay to perform the judge, jury, executioner duties, and that's really a sad state. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, it's a sad day in America, Ashleigh. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.